Before I reveal what lies inside the church's most talked about room, I must confess something. What I experienced there changed the way I understand faith. The shock didn't come from seeing a visible miracle or anything spectacular to the human eye. It came from an intimate encounter impossible to fully capture in words. Yet you need to hear this story because it might touch your own life in ways you don't expect. It all began when I first heard about a newly unveiled space inside an old cathedral. They called it the Saint Room, and almost immediately it became a subject of controversy. Some claimed it was a powerful innovation, an attempt to bridge the gap between the church's ancient tradition and the search for faith in modern times. Others accused it of being nothing more than a spectacle, designed to attract crowds rather than draw people closer to God. It was fascinating and unsettling to see how one single room could divide hearts and spark heated debates across the Catholic world. The door itself felt like a mystery, ancient, heavy, yet strangely luminous, as though it carried centuries of untold stories within its wood and iron. Outside, groups of faithful whispered prayers, some quietly weeping, others gazing at the entrance in deep silence. The atmosphere was so heavy with expectation that even before stepping inside I could feel it pressing on my chest. It was as though time slowed down the closer you moved toward that door. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to remain the objective journalist, ready to document every detail with a steady hand and skeptical mind. But another part of me, the quieter, more vulnerable part, longed simply to feel, to live, without explanations or analysis. What would happen when I crossed that threshold? And more importantly, was I prepared for what awaited inside? Then I noticed a woman leaving. Her eyes were red from weeping, yet her lips curved into a smile that was radiant, almost otherworldly. I asked what she had seen inside. She shook her head and whispered, "I didn't see anything, but I felt everything." Those words echoed in me like a riddle that demanded an answer. When I finally pushed the heavy door open, the chill of the ancient stone walls embraced me. What I encountered wasn't silence as the absence of sound, but silence as presence. Every wall, every relic, every ray of light seemed alive, speaking without words. Relics of saints, fragments of clothing, small artifacts, even soil collected from the sites of miracles were woven seamlessly into the architecture. Nothing looked random. The entire space seemed built to carry meaning far beyond human hands. As I walked further in, I realized this was not just a room. It was a threshold between past and present, heaven and earth. In that moment, it struck me. I wasn't observing the room. The room was observing me, reflecting back the hidden truths of my heart. And what happened next was even more unexpected. The longer I stayed, the more I realized I wasn't the only one sensing something beyond the ordinary. The room carried stories, not legends, not rumors, but real testimonies from people whose lives had been touched in ways reason alone could not explain. Take Maria, a 34-year-old woman who confided that she had entered the saint room full of skepticism. She had lost her grandmother a decade earlier, a wound that never healed. When she stepped out, her face was wet with tears.
I felt her hand holding mine. She's been gone for 10 years, but in that room, I swear she was there.
It wasn't hysteria. It wasn't exaggeration. There was a raw honesty in her words that left me stunned. Then there was David, a man who called himself a lifelong atheist. He admitted that he only went inside because his wife insisted.
But 20 minutes later, he emerged transformed. His very first question was, "How do I become Catholic?"
He couldn't explain it. He simply said that inside the room, the disbelief he had carried for years melted away. He felt a clarity he had never known before. Listening to these testimonies forced me to ask, what makes a space sacred? Is it the objects, the relics, the architecture? Or is it the mysterious way God chooses to reveal himself where we least expect it? The more I thought, the clearer it became. It wasn't about what people saw. It was about how they were changed. And then, unexpectedly, it was my turn. I had gone in determined to remain detached, ready to record and describe. But within minutes, something shifted inside me. My mind, usually a storm of noise, worries, deadlines, and endless thoughts, fell silent. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of peace. It was as if every burden I carried simply dissolved in that stillness. I cannot fully explain it, but I know I will never forget it. It became clear that the saint room was not a place to be understood. It was a place to be experienced. For one person, it was healing from grief. For another, it was the discovery of faith. For me, it was the gift of peace, the kind of peace that cannot be bought or taught, only given. But this growing movement of testimonies has also sparked criticism. Some argue the saint room risks turning the sacred into spectacle. Others fear that curiosity will eclipse reverence. The church now finds itself caught in a dilemma: how to welcome the crowds without diminishing the holiness of the place, how to embrace innovation without betraying tradition. These questions remain unanswered, and yet the transformations continue. The ripple effects of the saint room cannot be ignored. For many, it has become a destination of pilgrimage, a place where the invisible touches the visible. Families travel long distances, not out of curiosity alone, but in search of something their hearts have been craving: silence, transcendence, meaning. And perhaps that is its greatest gift. In a world overwhelmed with noise, speed, and endless distractions, the saint room offers what we have forgotten to seek. Not entertainment, not spectacle, but stillness, a reminder that the soul must breathe, that faith, when encountered in silence, can heal wounds no medicine can reach. Maybe this is why so many leave the room in tears, not from sadness, but from finally allowing themselves to feel. What cannot be denied are the fruits. People are returning to their faith. Families are reconciling. Individuals are making life-altering decisions after what they encountered within those walls. Even skeptics admit that something, whatever it may be, happens there. Something real, something undeniable. And yet, the challenge looms. How do you protect the sacred from becoming a tourist attraction? How do you preserve reverence while still allowing access? This tension is not new. From Lourdes to Fatima, from Jerusalem to Rome, sacred spaces have always balanced between authentic pilgrimage and exploitation. The saint room simply brings this old debate into a new century. As for me, I walked in with a camera and a notepad, expecting to leave with nothing more than observations. But I walked out with something infinitely greater, a rediscovery of peace. Not a miracle to display, not a vision to boast about, just peace. The kind that anchors you, quiets your storms, and reminds you that you are never alone. And maybe that's the greatest miracle of all. Now I turn to you. If you had the chance to step into that room, what would you feel? Would it be fear, peace, tears, or nothing at all? That's the beauty of mystery. It doesn't give the same answer to everyone, but it changes everyone who dares to enter. Have you ever had an unexplainable experience in a sacred space? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if this video stirred something in you, hit the like button so more people can discover this mystery. But before you leave, I want to invite you on a journey. Subscribe and walk with me as we uncover more hidden stories, sacred spaces, and mysteries of faith. Each discovery will challenge you, inspire you, and remind you that the extraordinary often hides in the most ordinary of places. Because true faith, when lived authentically, never leaves anyone the same.